Hey, this is Kenneth, and you are listening to Who Asked Us? Deep thoughts, lighthearted conversations. Join us as we discuss our way through the Bible with a growing, rotating panel of guests, none of which claim to be experts on any of this. We hope you get just as much out of these conversations as we did having them. Thanks for listening.
Speaking of, how's everyone doing? Has everyone gotten the sickness, the bad flu that's been going around?
The who? Bag flu?
Bad.
Oh,
So
bad
we're
flu.
like,
Bad flu.
Clearly, I'm sick. So
Yeah.
it's
I was like,
okay.
this
Having
new
flu.
flu?
Someone's
called
going
bag
on
flu,
plastic
man.
bags.
That's
Gotcha.
what they go around with the sickness and
I
bags
know,
and cover
right?
people's faces like, you're sick.
The bag flu is someone puts a plastic bag over your head. I think that's just suffocation. That's just
It's actually just...
I've
murder.
been
It's called
good
murder.
so far this year. Woke up with some sniffles though, so I don't know. Maybe
No,
just
I
because it's
woke
snowing
up
outside. But...
randomly. I woke up randomly with like congestion. I was fine last night. It's weird.
I just will not getting sick. Like I'm just like, ooh, I'm not gonna do it.
That's how you will your
Squeeze as hard
sickness?
as I can.
same way you get the
Always clenched.
Same way I get what? Hold on, what was he gonna say?
Nothing.
You tell me. Squeeze out a little poop. I tell my students like, because they always go, why don't you have a beard? You should grow a beard. And I go, every day I try. I sit down and I go, ooh, it doesn't come out, so I don't.
Oh my god.
You gotta have your fiber. I have to drink my green juice every day.
Yeah, you
For
know,
a
more
beard?
fiber for your
I'm not
no, for the
regular
constipation.
beer. I thought you were
For a
talking about
poop.
pooping.
I mean,
Yeah.
God.
No, I gotta. Otherwise, I won't be regular.
Mm-hmm.
No,
Healthy
you
source of
don't.
fiber.
Listen, I wouldn't wish hemorrhoids on my worst enemy.
Dietary fiber.
I can't wait to fade into this, man. This is our
That should just
opener.
be like the beginning clip of the.
I just wouldn't wish hemorrhoids on my worst enemy.
Oh my
That's
God.
hysterical.
You know.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
What's it called? No, what's it called? Actually, I have a friend. What's it called? No, this is never mind. Too graphic. I'm actually not going to share this story because God forbid they
any
ever
story
listen.
about hemorrhoids that starts with "I have a friend." Actually, it's like,
Oh my God.
a little dicey.
Oh, guys, I wainscoted my own wall.
What is
Your what?
wainscot?
You don't watch
Some
HGTV,
people
do you?
are not
like just
into
not.
it as you are.
Don't blur.
I'm
it.
into it. Let me see.
Don't blur it. Look what's going on here.
Oh.
I love the wall art. Hold on a second.
That's
Pause
nice.
that.
There's the way. Wait, I'm sorry. There's the way.
No.
The truth.
Oh yeah.
There's the light.
Oh,
I love
that's
those.
awesome. So wait, what's the
Mhm.
wainscoting part? That's a
You see this like
It's the
molding?
trim.
okay.
right
That's what I
here?
thought. Yeah, you did that
Nice.
yourself.
That's what that's called.
Correct.
That's awesome. Wow.
I was like, I'm gonna do this all by myself because I'm she.
Cheap.
But you know what though? That it looks so sophisticated.
Mhm.
Thank you. I should show you my entire room makeover. It's actually really nice. What's your name? Kenneth was judging.
Oh yeah, I was judging.
Really didn't
Because
understand the vision.
because I
people
saw
don't
it
have
in
vision.
progress, and I was like, I can
this
see, I
is
can
why.
visualize greatness. I just didn't know how you were gonna get there.
But can
That's all
you?
it was.
Can you? This is what I'm saying. This is why whenever I'm working with the client, don't show them halfway. They're not
Mhm.
going to understand.
They're not gonna
They
understand.
have to see the end product.
You
They're just
know,
not going to get it.
Oh.
I also did board and batten on my other wall.
I just like how Kenneth was just like, no, I saw that you were making progress and saw that if someone could succeed. I just didn't know how you were going to do it. That's wild. So it wasn't
Oh,
the lack of
man.
vision; it was the lack of
Hey,
trust.
came out great.
That's very upsetting.
so everyone's ear is okay.
Everyone's ears.
Not ear. I mean, well, I hope your ears
Here.
are okay. So
I
you can
said- I
hear.
heard here.
You know what? As the editor of this podcast, I'm going to say it. Kenneth, if you don't stop mumbling, I'm going to...
You just gotta keep on increasing
Wait.
my volume. That's all
I
you
do
gotta
a lot.
Yep.
Actually,
1000%.
move the mic away from your face. Get that away. Push it away a little bit. Yeah, I want you to pretend I'm far away. I'm sitting there like, oh, man, this guy... Don't get me wrong. When you go on a little soliloquy, I don't care. When you go on a little soliloquy, it's the most beautiful, luscious voice.
Beautifish.
Luscious voice.
Beautifish. Yeah, I was listening to the podcast, which I put
Whose
off.
podcast?
for-
Our podcast?
Yeah, no, ours. Which I put off
Who
for
asked us?
basically as much as possible until 2 days ago, 3 days ago. I don't know.
Oh, that's all of our streams. Kenneth has just been running it on loop.
So, and I'm just like, I hate the sound of my voice, but I love the things that I say. Like I'm just like listening to myself. Like, oh, this is great. If I can get this transcript version of it, I'm just like print it out, put it on a little poster on my wall. Like,
But I love what I gotta say. I just realized how much of a little wuss I sound like. Like the fact that I don't get beat up consistently.
You didn't used to?
No, literally no. We had a nice time in high school. I was friends with just about everybody. Yeah, I don't know.
Wait, this is
I
interesting.
wouldn't say I was like a popular kid.
When I listen to my own voice, it sounds like I'm like I have like something like stuck in my throat. You know, like I'm like really like all bunched up. You know. So, Tally, anything you learned listening to your own voice?
Ginger. Oh, wait.
No, I'm saying that's what it
I'll
sounds
tell you.
like.
she's giving you herbal advice.
Ginger burn some sage.
You know,
Ginger,
some
great.
honey,
Raw,
lemon.
unfiltered honey.
I'm sorry, I was completely going a different route. Can you read?
I'm just saying, no. I'm just saying that. So Kenneth, you know, doesn't like the sound of his own voice, right? Franklin doesn't like the sound of his own voice. I don't either, but like it's all different for different perspective. But yeah, so for you, do you like the sound of your own voice? Or you?
No, it's very cringy. I don't
okay.
like listening to my voice. I think like you know how there's like how you hear yourself now when you're speaking.
Mm-hmm.
For me, I sound like Barry Manilow. Like I feel like I sound like the Allstate guy. Like to me, my voice sounds really deep.
Oh.
But then when I hear it on recording, I'm just like I'm really just like a sissy. Like I'm just like my voice is up there. I'm annoying. I don't want to hear it. I do like what comes out of my mouth.
I did learn the reason why your voice sounds deeper is because the sound waves are reverberating back through your own head, which is denser than air. So like by the time the sound wave,
dense.
I'm sorry.
Yes.
Like
you're dense. Thick.
Well, you're denser than air. We can definitely agree, right? Everybody's denser than air. So yeah. So by the time somebody else hears it, right, it only traveled through the air. It didn't travel through their own bones and like muscle and flesh and everything. So yeah, that's why it tends to be a little bit deeper in our own heads, like literally.
Yeah, that's cool. I also think I do speak kind of fast, though. Slowing it down. I've come a long way, though. I used to speak lightning speed.
Yeah, I remember.
Yeah. All right.
Ready to dive in?
Are we?
I'm sorry, I wasn't cutting you off. I was like,
no,
let's go.
I thought you were, and I didn't know what my transition was going to be.
I was going to transition, but I continue. It's the teacher in me. I'm sorry. Like, all right, guys, 3:20. Let's get straight.
I feel like I usually have a great segue when I'm teaching, and I'm just like, I'm waiting for someone to say something, but like, I don't know. Hey, I want to go to war with you. Oh, perfect. Talk about war. Like,
World War II.
Which, can I open with a question then? Could that be our transition?
Yeah,
that was a question.
This was, all right, well, I guess that's my one. So,
next.
Who am I, James? Can I say something?
May I please ask a question?
Start raising your hand in the podcast.
What's it called? This is the first chapter where I feel like it's just a description, and I'm like, okay, what am I looking to learn? Until the very end, I feel like I'm like trying to read into things, and it just seems like it's a light description. Light being just like not super detailed description of what happened battle-wise. So I'm curious what you guys got out of it, especially at the beginning, if anyone kind of got any wisdom up there.
Yeah, so right off the bat, I was thinking immediately like it would be very nice to talk to somebody that knows a lot about history, and get their perspective on this, because it something I'm constantly reminded of reading through the chapters of Genesis is that how much of a history book this, the Old Testament literally must have acted as, right? Like as like a written collection of historical events, right? A document of historical events. Even if it wasn't necessarily first-hand document, right? If we assume Moses wrote it, and Moses wasn't alive yet. But either way, that's why I think it's so important. All of the lineage that's discussed throughout different chapters.
Sure. And
then as well as like physically, like, okay, these are the battles, these are the areas they were battling, these are the kings of those areas, right? And this is what happened. Like it was more like just a straightforward an account or like just documentation.
Do we have any, or does anybody know, or can we find out? I don't know. Does this does this battle have any other type of record? Like maybe not of Abram's involvement in it, right? But do we have any record of a battle in this area at what could be perceived as this time?
I don't know off the top of my head now, but I mean, this is the ancient Middle East, I guess, and there's massive amounts of battles everywhere at all times, historically. So, I mean, the fact that this could even I don't even know. Yeah, I wouldn't know. There's just a lot of different battles all the time for all of these old. I mean, they call them kings, but these aren't really nations. These are like cities, towns, that are fighting each other. So it's just a different scale, and they didn't have just that much of a written record. But yeah, I could be wrong. Maybe it is well documented, but I wouldn't know.
Yeah, I'm gonna on the side do a little Googling as we go, because I'm just curious. We've kind of gotten what I think is kind of outside of the poetry type part of Genesis, and I think a lot of you guys agree, and gotten more into the this is the description, this is what happened. So I want to see if it's ever mentioned anywhere else besides in the Hebrew Bible. So I'm going to do a little Googling as we go just to see if I can find it.
So if we just kind of skip ahead, then not to go too fast, but after the battles are described or the kind of buildup of what battles were going on was described, right? So in chapter 14 up to verse, I believe, let's see here, 11. The victors seized all the possessions and food supplies of Sodom and Gomorrah, and then went their way, taking with them Abram's nephew Lot, who had been living in Sodom, as well as his possessions. And so then it goes on to say, right, how then eventually, not Abram. Sorry, I'm blanking. Blanking on this is I have terrible brain farts all the time. Lot's cousin.
Lot's cousin?
Yeah. Who you talking? Lot's cousin.
Am I?
Well, I know Abram is Lot's uncle.
Right. Oh, so maybe I do mean Abram then. Sorry, hang on.
Those are the only two that I
know
about family-wise right now.
I do mean Abram.
Lot's cousin is Isaac.
But Isaac's not here yet.
Exactly. So
okay. So I'm making
that's a good setup for a bird. It's like, oh yeah.
So anyway, yeah. So Abram obviously finds out about Lot's kidnapping and and all his possessions being taken, and then readies his men to then rescue him back.
Correct.
Right. And so this is where I think from a story level, right? It actually begins to be something that we can really engage with. It's not just it seems to get deeper, as I think Kenneth was alluding to. Is it okay if we go through this the kind of the second half of this chapter? Is it okay if we just read it, or would you guys rather?
Yeah, we can read it.
Okay,
no, it's not okay. You can't do anything.
All right,
all your options were incorrect.
Say it again. I'm sorry.
I said all your options were incorrect. We can't do any of those.
Oh, all right. So I'm going to read it. So starting from, let's see here. What verse do you guys think we should start from? I guess I'll pick up from where I left off. Verse 12 is where I just finished. So verse 13. A fugitive came and brought the news to Abram, the Hebrew, who was camping at the terebinth of Marm, the Amorite, and kinsman of Eshcol and Aner. These were in league with Abram. I'm going to mess up a lot of these names. When Abram... Oh, so this is also, just to clarify, this is the New American Bible.
Oh, yeah. I was like, what do you
So sometimes I know we're looking at different translations. When Abram heard... verse 14. When Abram heard that his nephew had been captured, he mustered 318 of his retainers, born in his house, and went in pursuit as far as Dan. He and his party deployed against them at night, defeating them, and pursued them as far as Hobah, which is north of Damascus. 16. He recovered all the possessions besides bringing back his kinsman Lot and his possessions, along with the women and the other captives. 17. When Abram returned from his victory over Chedorlaomer, and the kings who were allied with him, the king of Sodom went out to greet him in the valley of Shiva. That is the king's valley. So then we meet Melchizedek in verse 18, king of Salem, brought out bread and wine, and being a priest of God Most High, he blessed Abram with these words: Blessed be Abram by God Most High, the creator of heaven and earth. And blessed be God Most High, who delivered your foes into your hands. Then Abram gave him a tenth of everything. The king of Sodom said to Abram, Give me the people, the goods you may keep. But Abram replied to the king of Sodom, I have sworn to the Lord, God Most High, the creator of heaven and earth, that I would not take so much as a thread or a sandal strap from anything that is yours, lest you should say, I made Abram rich. Finally, verse 24, Nothing from me, except what my servants have used up, and the share that is due to the men who join me. Aner, Eshcol, and Mamre.
That's just one person.
Yeah. Let them
like 5 different names.
Let them take their share. Okay, and that's where
I just love that with how monotonous you read that, and then Memre.
I'm like, I found the website with the smallest text possible, and I'm like really squinting to read this.
Oh my gosh.
So
that's good.
Okay, so that's where it starts to get interesting, right? When Abram finally like rescues Lot. So also, I did want to point out one more thing before I turn the mic over to you guys, back to you guys, is the retreat. So let's see here. Let's see which verse that is. Do you guys know what I'm talking about? So in an earlier verse, when they're talking about the soldiers that were retreating from the battle that they lost, I think it was from Sodom.
Is it verse 10?
Yes. Now the valley of Sodom was full of bitumen is the verse. So tar pits is what in the New Living Translation is what it says. And as the king of Sodom and Gomorrah fled, they fell into these, while the rest fled to the mountains. I don't know. Just thought that was interesting. I imagined like a Lord of the Rings scene where soldiers are retreating, but they're getting stuck in tar pits.
Are they really stuck in tar pits in the?
In the New Living Translation, it says tar pits. I'm gonna have to Google that word.
No, in the movie.
Oh no. I don't think.
I was about to say.
I'm just imagining. Wow. Well, Lord of the Rings.
I get what you're saying.
Yeah, Lord of the Rings. There's a lot of inspiration and themes from the Bible.
No, I know, but that would have been a pretty deep dive. That would have been a pretty cool one.
Yeah,
if they were.
Bitumen is an immensely viscous constituent of petroleum. Depending on the exact composition, it could be a sticky black liquid.
Which is interesting for the location, because I think this is like kind of Iran type of area for some of these spots. So very interesting, because the Middle East obviously is a very oil-rich place. It sounds like a silly thing, like throwaway detail, but I feel like that's another way where we kind of notice, like, I don't think they were using petroleum at the time, right?
No,
but
definitely not.
but you know what I mean? There's this detail there that it kind of proves it to us now. Mm-hmm. But it's just interesting that it's there. It's like, oh yeah, these tar pits. This is a place that would have had those things. Mm-hmm. So I just find that interesting. It's like almost a little bit of proof that you can't tell me he's made up, because they wouldn't have known to make it up.
Mm-hmm.
Is it not natural geographically for that region, though, to have tar pits?
Is it not natural?
Yeah.
I think Franklin was just saying that it makes sense with the region, right? If we're talking about the Middle East.
I thought said it didn't.
Oh no!
I'm saying I think it's cool that it does. It's like you can't tell me that's a made up thing, or they're trying to make it sound real, because they wouldn't know to.
All right. So just so I can have we all know what's going on, right? Abram and Lot in the last chapter, or whatever, they separated because they had some disputes or whatever. Lot chooses to go somewhere else. Abram stays where he is. And now it's just like beginning of verse 14. It's just taking a step away from Abraham and Lot for a second and just saying like, okay, because remember, Abram isn't really in a place right now. He's kind of just wandering. He walked through like what Canaan, but God's like, oh, this is the land I'm going to give it to you, to your children. But then Abram keeps on wandering. He goes away to Egypt. He comes back. He's not really in a place. Abram isn't settled anywhere.
No, he did. He came and settled this is literally the last verse of the last chapter. So Abram moved his tent and came and settled by the oaks of Mamre, which James couldn't pronounce 2 seconds ago. Which are at Hebron.
What I mean settled, like he still is in his tent. He's not in the place where God said he's going to be.
Oh, I assume they just all live in tents.
Yeah.
I didn't think that meant they're still.
He's not like he's not in a building. He doesn't have a city. He doesn't have walls.
No, I get what you're saying. Now that you're saying it, I'm saying like I don't know. Native Americans lived in teepees for a while, but sometimes they stayed in them for a long time.
I mean, it depends on which natives you're talking about. But yeah,
I don't know enough about them to know the difference.
Oh my god! Of course you don't. So it just takes a step back. It's like, all right, well, at the same time, Abram is kind of like living in his tents around Mamre, mommy, whatever. There are like, was it 9 different kings here? 9 different towns, 9 different cities. And 4 of them are going to war against 5 of them. And really, for 12 years, they were all serving one of them, but then some of them have rebelled, right? So that's what's happening. There's like, all 9 kings were kind of serving one main one. His name was Chedorlaomer. I don't know how to say his name at all. But in the 13th year, some of them rebelled. So then 5 of them are like, you know what, we're not going to be serving this guy. And the ones who rebelled seems to be the king of Sodom, the king of Gomorrah, king of Admah, the king of Zeboim, and the king of Bela. So 5 of them. So that's what's happening. And then they're just going at it. They're just fighting each other. But verse 5, I think, is also interesting. What is this saying? In the 14th year, Chedorlaomer and the kings who were with him, so the other 3, came and defeated the Rephaim in Ashtoreth, the Zuzim in Ham, the Emim in Shaveh, and the Horites in their hill country. And when they turned back and came to En Mishpat, or Kadesh, they defeated all the country of the Amalekites and also the Amorites who were dwelling in that area. And I'm clearly like... So there's just a lot of things going on, a lot of battles, a lot of warring, a lot of fighting. In the 13th year, there's a rebellion. In the 14th year, one of the kings are just going and defeating a whole bunch of people and kind of slaughtering them or defeating them.
The rebels ultimately lost. So in verse 9, right, it says, so I'm just looking at the places here. So we have Elam, Goim, Shinar, Arak, were the 4 kings against the 5. So they were the ones that didn't rebel. And then it talks about then the tar pits in verse 10, and the king of Sodom and Gomorrah fled, and they fell into the tar pits, and then the victors seized all the possessions of Sodom and Gomorrah.
Yeah. So, yeah, the rebels kind of fell. And the reason why it's telling you this entire story is because, well, what does it have to do with what we're talking about? Oh, Lot, who was living near Sodom and Gomorrah, he was one of the people who were taken when the rebels fell, because Sodom and Gomorrah were 2 of the rebelling cities, right? Or kings, right? So they took him, and then that's kind of where we hear when Abram is like, one of the people who escaped from getting captured runs to Abram, tells Abram about this, and yeah, that's kind of what's going on in this chapter.
And so Abram doesn't really hesitate. He gets his 318 men, and they immediately start going to rescue Lot.
Yeah, but I think it's really cool because it's phrasing it like Abram's just chilling. He was living at that point by the Oaks of Mamre because that's where he put his tent. He's not one of these cities, not one of the 4 cities who are going and conquering a bunch of other places and capturing against the other 5 kings who were rebelling. He's just chilling, and he hears that Lot was taken. So he's like, let me just get a whole bunch of people that I have on retainer, because Abram is pretty wealthy at this point, right? And he's going to go up against the 4 kings who just came and conquered and just took Lot and then just take him back. Like, what would that be equivalent to?
300, kind of, in terms of odds.
Yeah.
Well, so
that's insane.
It says he and his party deployed them at night, defeating them, pursued them as far as Hobah, which is north of Damascus. He recovered all the possessions, and besides bringing back his kinsman Lot and his possessions along with the women. So it sounds like he was mostly, I guess, not trying to defeat these people, just take back what was stolen, including obviously the people. So, and it also seems like it was really just for Sodom, if I'm not mistaken, right? Like that was all he was really able to rescue, was take back the possessions that were stolen from Sodom. So he didn't go against 5 kingdoms or 4 kingdoms or anything.
Well,
I assume.
No, but in my version it says he and his servant blah, 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 and defeated them and pursued them to Hobah north of Damascus. Then he brought back all the possessions.
Yeah.
So in my version at least, it does say he defeated them.
Yeah, and them is not Sodom.
So them, like all the people that pillaged Sodom.
Yes.
Which would be the entire 4 kingdoms that didn't rebel.
Well, and so that's what I was kind of saying before with like, this is a light telling.
Right.
Because what has defeated them? Is it just he got them out of Sodom? Or did he defeat them entirely? You know what I mean? Like I don't know. I mean, it does say after his return from the defeat of Chedorlaomer, and the kings who were with him, the king of Sodom went out to meet him at the valley. So it does say like he defeated that guy and those other kings that were with him. It's like Chedorlaomer was like the big one. Mm-hmm. So it does sound like they won, so to speak, and not just defended Sodom.
He didn't defend. He went against Ched. I'm just gonna call him Ched. He went against King Ched, right? Like and beat them and took their spoils of war. Their spoils of war were Sodom and Gomorrah, because they beat Sodom and Gomorrah, and they took everything, including Lot. And then Abram goes in and fights against King Ched and his other 3 kings, right? Defeats them and is able to take back Lot. So this random guy who's just sojourning in the area was able to beat these same 4 kings, who were also able to beat the 5 kings who rebelled against them, right? Like, that is pretty...
Yeah, but isn't that kind of like a, hey, can you open this pickle jar? Oh, I loosened the lid for you situation?
I don't know.
I'm just saying.
I see where you're going. Sure. Where it's like, like they just fought 5 other kingdoms, right? Mm-hmm. So it's like they probably weren't at full strength there, you know?
Well, and it's interesting. The only reason I bring that up is because and maybe I'm reading into you a little bit, Ken. When I was reading this, I was like, cool. As someone who's never read it before, I was like, cool. When's the moment where they're going to go, Abram said, God, let me do this, or like, how should I do this, or whatever. And he was victorious because he followed God or asked God first, or something like that. I was waiting for that moment, right? Because I think that's happened in other places.
That doesn't happen here. Yeah, in fact, God isn't even mentioned in this part for the first 16 verses.
He's not mentioned until, he's like, hey, Abram, just give me the people of Sodom back, but you keep all the spoils. You deserve it. You saved us. And Abram's like, well, actually, and then we start talking God. So the only reason I bring it up is because it seems like you're kind of going the direction of like, look how capable they were, and here's why. Or like, what are you kind of...
I'm just saying, look how capable they were, because they were able to... Again, they're not living in the land. Like, well, they're living in the land, but they're not. They don't have a city. They don't have a thing. They're not part of this international conflict, and they're able to go up. Not Abram with his servants, his retainers, what they call them, go in, pursue them, and defeat them, and then come back to the king of Sodom and be like, "Yeah, look what I did." So I think that's just pretty impressive of Abram and as a man, as a person, or as a group of whatever he has, of whatever he's doing.
Does it say? I have in my version that it says these were 318 trained men that were born in his house. Does that mean that these aren't his descendants yet, right? That hasn't happened. I know he's been promised.
No, he doesn't have any children. He has a whole bunch of servants and things. He's a wealthy man, and part of his house, like, that's his wealth, his people, right?
Okay, so like servants born, like if they're having families, like they're under his rule, so to speak.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Abram's definitely a wealthy man, because remember, he took some of his wealth from his father too when he left.
Sure, I'm just trying to understand, because they obviously never really break it down specifically. So I'm trying to understand, like, what does wealthy man mean, and what does born in his house mean? But that makes a lot more sense, because I think, like you said before, Tally, Isaac is Lot's cousin, and Isaac's not here yet. And Isaac's a big deal when he comes, because Sarah's or Sarai right now, right? She's barren, correct?
Yeah, she cannot have a child.
Yeah. So, I just want to, I guess, clear that up in my head.
Or can she?
Dum.
Find out.
Not yet.
So then, Tally, do you mind if I ask you this question? Even though, just to kind of bring you, unless you had a different thing in mind, why do you think then Abram, he got Lot back, he got the spoils of war back, and then he chooses not to take any of it? So, any thoughts on that one?
I actually have my bullet points, but I never asked.
We're starting every episode with, and tally your bullet points, please.
I have a few. No, I think for me, oh my gosh, can you say the question again?
So why do you think Abram didn't take any of the spoils of war? He basically was offered it, right? He rescued it from, but then, and like, if you I'm just curious to hear your thoughts on that part of the story, but, you know, if we don't have to, I am jumping ahead a little bit, so we don't have to get there right now.
I just think that he credits it to God, and I also don't think he wanted to take any of those riches, because I don't think he wanted them to say, yeah, like, he gets this because we gave it to him, you know, like, that's not who the credit goes to. I think in that sense, maybe this is how I'm thinking of it. I took it as Abram's like, yeah, you're not going to be able to say, yeah, you know, we helped him out, we gave him all this and stuff. No, he's just like, this was God and this was my men.
Right.
That's interesting though, because imagine, like, you know, somebody, keep it light, right? So you watch somebody get their purse snatched, right? And you help them get it back. You go and you try, you chase the guy down, you grab the purse back, the robber runs away or whatever. You give it back to the lady, and she goes, "Oh my gosh, thank you so much. Like, I'm just happy to have my purse back. It's a really expensive purse, you know, but like, I had $40. Take this. Like, thank you so much." And you're like, "I'm not going to take that, because then you're going to go around town saying, you know, I gave him that $40. And it's interesting because, like, yeah, but girl, I saved your purse. Like, you know what I mean? Like, so Abram could totally turn around and say, no, I deserve this. And they could say they gave it to me. And like, if he could just turn around to those people and say, yeah, go ahead, ask them why they gave it to me, because they wouldn't even have it if it wasn't for me. You know,
I feel like, I think that also goes back to discernment. Like, I'm a believer of like, hey, don't block your blessings. Like, this could be, hey, you did this good like deed. That. And yeah, I'm just, I all glory to God. But if you want to give me $4, you can. I'm going to naturally, who I am naturally is just like, I instinctually always decline first.
Sure.
If you ask me another time, I will accept. Like, that's literally my rule. So if I decline and then you're like, okay, I don't think you were a cheerful giver. Like, I don't think you actually wanted to give it to me.
Now, out of context, would you ever turn around and go, like, oh, take $40? You go, no, it's really okay. And then they go, okay. Now, when do you turn around and go, you know, you could ask me again.
No, I don't. It wasn't for me. It really was. I don't want anything that it feels like you didn't really want to give it to me.
Oh, this is the old Yeller rule.
Yeah. You know what I'm saying?
You set it free, and if it comes back, it's for you.
But no, I do think there's a difference. I don't know. I feel like, you know, Abram's a man of God, and he's just like, maybe he only wanted his allies and his credits to have his allies and God to have the credit for that success.
Do you think that if the king of Sodom asked Abram again, then Abram would have been like, "Oh, all right, I'll take some."
He'd be like, if you
honestly,
insist.
He's human. Probably deep down in his brain, he's like, "That would be real nice right now." But
well,
listen, firm.
He says something. I think there's like a, what am I saying? What's the word? I don't know. Elephant in the room, because like we talked about these.
They're no longer
endangered. Oh, really?
I'm sorry.
Oh.
Elephants as a whole? Or a certain type?
No, elephants is a part.
I think I'm thinking about pandas. I'm sorry.
Oh, wow, that's more impressive.
They aren't endangered anymore. Good news for all our listeners.
Sorry.
Oh my God.
You heard it here first.
You heard it here last. This won't be out for a while.
Sorry.
There's, in the middle of nowhere is a 10th king, right? Melchizedek, the king of Salem. Out of nowhere. Like, no one, it doesn't explain, like, why is he even there, right? He just shows up with bread and wine. And he's blessing
I feel like bread and wine's important. I don't know why. Got to put my finger on it.
I don't know. Never heard of it. He shows up with the bread and the wine. And then he says he's noted as a priest of God Most High, right? So already you have someone who's not in the line of Abram, who still is.
I noticed that. I think that's so interesting.
God, right? So that is key. And then on top of that, he's blessing Abram. This is blessed be Abram, God Most High, possessor of heaven and earth. That's what my version says. And then later on, when Abram declined Sodom, he says, I lifted my hand to the Lord, God Most High, possessor of heaven and earth, that I would not take anything, from that is yours, right? So Abram and this guy, random guy, Melchizedek, are kind of worshiping the same God, right? And I think that's it. I don't think Melchizedek is like, he just comes out of nowhere and is mentioned, and that's it.
And I think that's a good point. I think that kind of ties into what I'm saying, because Melchizedek blesses Abram, right? And acknowledges that God gave Abram the victory. And Abram's like, yo, my brother, same page. Step up. You know what I'm saying?
And
I think that's the difference.
To piggyback on that, Tally, because like now that we're reading it again, it says Abram says, I have lifted my hand to the Lord. And my little, the little hyperlink note, if I click it, it rephrases as, I have taken a solemn oath not to, take sandal strap or anything that is yours, lest you could say, whatever. So I'm curious if, and even when Melchizedek says, like, blessed be God the Most High, who has delivered your enemies into your hand, maybe it just doesn't say it before. Maybe the order of how this was written is just a little confusing. And maybe he is saying, like, all right, I'm going to go help my cousin, but I'm not doing this for riches, God. Like, I'm sure Abram, who we've seen as this man of faith, right? It's probably pretty arguable that, I know, Ken's going to be like, it doesn't say this specifically in the text, but I would be amazed if he didn't pray before going on this pursuit, and so maybe he's just speaking in the past tense saying, yeah, I'm not going to take that. I promised God I wouldn't. I'm not doing this for riches. I'm doing this to save my kinsman. I'm doing this to save Lot, and that's part of the reason why I said, take your stuff back. I came to help you guys, not to take your stuff. I didn't want to conquer you and take your stuff for myself from that king. I wanted to unconquer you, so to speak.
Yeah, to liberate.
Okay, Ken's nodding. I was worried Ken was going to be like, that's not in the text.
Oh, no. I think you could infer past tense, since he said, I have lifted, right? That's kind of more past tense.
Can I infer some more here? If we're starting to infer, let's really go down the rabbit hole. So, I'm kidding. But so if I were, as I read this, and I try to draw lessons from it in my own life, and also something that Tally said, right? Like, it's just part of her personality not to accept, an offer, especially on the first, the first time somebody offers it. And I feel very similarly. And so, in verse 23, at the very end, when Abram says, lest you should say, I made Abram rich, my guess would be that, or like the lesson I would draw from that is, he understands the trade-off of accepting an offer that could then be used against him, in the future, right? It's kind of like he's not being tempted by what's directly in front of him. He'd rather have, right, like a good relationship with his neighbors and and other kingdoms rather than immediate gratification. And that's kind of like just very simply the lesson that I would personally take from it, even though it's not explicitly written.
Like that. I think also, yes, James, and maybe not piggybacking, but like a thought from what Franklin said earlier is, I feel like about, darn it. I have sick brain right now.
No,
about,
I've been there.
About, I guess, like reacting in faith versus emotionally, where it's just like, what's the reason that you're doing this for? So sometimes I like to think about it as, because we have love languages, right? And the way I show is different from how I receive, right? I'm a gift giver. And people are like, oh, you're such a great gift giver. And I'm just like, I just naturally like making people happy and like giving gifts. And
my daughter's aware.
And
her love language is receiving.
I will spoil her to the death, just so you know. Hopefully she doesn't die anytime soon.
Yeah, I agree.
That's crazy.
Wow.
Just a lot of that. No, but I think a lot of people give expecting to receive. And then for me, did you genuinely give out of the goodness of your heart? And I feel like that's kind of, it's maybe like a slant comparison, but I think that's kind of what I'm talking about in terms of like, oh yeah, I'm going to get all these riches after. Like maybe Abram didn't want his heart to seem like he was there. It was for generally just,
that's,
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, actually, that's interesting because we're looking at it as he doesn't want people, almost like he doesn't want his reputation tarnished in the way of like, oh, I don't want them being able to go around and say this, not because it's against me, but because I just don't want people to think this of me. I don't want them to think that's why I did this, even if it's a very nice thing for you to give to me.
Yeah,
that's an interesting take on that. You know, the same. It's just a different intent behind it that I think is fair to say. That makes sense.
Yeah. What are you thinking over there, James? Stroking your non-existent beard.
Yeah.
Wild.
This is like 3 weeks of not shaving. I'm kidding. I
I was like, oh, no.
Genuinely.
For our listeners, he has a full beard.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
It's very manly.
So I'm thinking about Franklin's purse example. And how, if somebody steals a woman's
not
purse.
Not my purse.
So you're right. Not your purse.
I mean, hey.
But if
somebody people to judge.
If somebody were to steal a woman's purse and then Franklin comes by and he, gets the purse back and he brings it back to the woman and the woman's like, "Thank you so much for getting this purse back." And then Franklin was like, "Well, can I keep it?" I got it back for you. It's the spoils of war, Like, it's almost like that was what I was expecting Franklin to say.
Or even let me clear it out, right?
Right,
I'm not only taking the money inside.
Exactly.
I want the lipstick. I want your Metro card.
Right.
They don't need that anymore anyways, but you know what I'm saying.
Exactly. Right. Like it would be ridiculous to expect something in return if the person obviously offered, as Franklin said in his example, $40 or whatever, right? Like that's a little bit different. But like
and I guess
to do it with the expectation, right, of receiving something. Yeah. I mean, and that's such a small and I would argue contrived example, right, where it's like a set kind of like example. But if
but that would be conquering, right?
Well, I was going to say if you can get messier. So let's say, for example, now if you were to try and make fill in a lot of the details of the story, right? Men probably died. A lot of things were probably broken and lost. A lot of individuals which weren't like soldiers, so like women and children, right, probably died. And so now, kind of the aftermath of that, it's like the price you paid was was very high, most likely, right? And so to expect nothing in return, that is probably incredibly hard, right? I mean, that's like why it's the risk versus reward thing, right? Like why people that are willing to do risky jobs or invest their money in a risky way, right, would be expecting a higher reward. It's that
sure.
Trade-off. So that's why I think now this is kind of setting the opposite example.
Yeah, but now we're getting a little too close to Abram wanted to go save Sodom, where I don't think that was his intention. I think that was like just kind of part of saving Lot.
Mm-hmm.
It was just a consequence. Like,
he
really didn't care. He just wanted to get Lot. He doesn't care about Sodom. He doesn't even want Sodom to. He doesn't really want that friendly relate. Like, he's just like, yeah, take your stuff back. I'll take my stuff. Mm-hmm. And he even makes sure at the very end, he says, let Aner, Eshcol, and Mamre, which is the other kings, like let them make sure they get their own share, and let's just be done with it.
Well, it's almost he's like, I just want the chaos in the region to stop because when there was chaos in the region, it affected my family.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so I mean, because the same thing, if he was to take those spoils, that would sound like, oh, you did this because like instead of Abram, you did this to get rich. Maybe we could infer that more as, oh, Abram, you did this so that you could conquer and get rich. Mm-hmm. And he's like, no, I was trying to save my family. Yeah, I want nothing else out of this.
And that's a good point, too, because he's also, like, not concerned with their political squabbles. Like, were they right for rebelling against King Chad?
Sure.
Not like, nope, not even a thought.
Yeah, and if you notice, there's no mention. We don't know why they were rebelling. We don't know if it was just or unjust, or we don't know any of that stuff.
It's also a question. Did Abram know that he was going to be offered or riches or spoils after this? Is that customary for what happens? Or, there's something that happened to me the other day. Oh, wow. Testimony time. Didn't expect this. So something happened to me the other day. I never have testimonies. I was just chilling, doing some work, and someone cash apps me $700, 700. And I'm like, wow, well, look at that. No, but, automatically, I was just like, I have to give this back. And this is because, one, I am a good person, I like to think. But two, I have accidentally sent money to someone once, and I had to open up a whole dispute.
Yeah. Like by accident? Like you don't even know this person?
No, this person had changed their number. So I was sending to the old number, but it was a new person.
No, I'm saying what you received.
Oh, this I received. And when I got it, I didn't think I knew the person.
Okay.
Right? So, but mind you, my dad, he just had surgery. So I'm tending to him and like changing his bandages. So I see it, but I can't like get to it right away. I'm like, wow, that's crazy. I got to return that. While changing my dad bandages, I got like 20 missed calls, like a million messages via Cash App, emails. And I'm just like, yo, how did they get my number from Cash App? I'm like, I got to get rid of this app. Like, this is crazy. How did they get all that? It turns out it was someone I had met 10 years ago, passing in college.
Wow.
And I had picked up the call and I said, hey, sorry, I don't know you, but I have your name saved. So I know we met before. The name sounds familiar. He's just like, yeah, how's everything going? I'm sorry, I know I'm blowing up your phone, but I have to pay a bill to somebody, and I selected your name instead of theirs, and your names are very close. Can you please send it back? And I was like, yeah, without a doubt, I had no problem. I was going to do it. Just give me 5 minutes. I have to like tend to my dad. He was like, okay, cool. So he had to just trust me in faith.
Sure.
And I did, I might have taken 20 minutes, had to go to the pharmacy, do a couple of
things. And then I blocked him.
No. But I sent it back. I sent it back, right? And I didn't think anything of it. I sent it back. We ended up, I texted him, I said, hey, I sent it back, sent a screenshot, let me know if it went through on your end. And then I was just like, by the way, do I actually know you? Because your name is in my thing. And he told me a whole story about myself, my friends from college. I was like, wow, I'm terrible for not remembering. And then he sent me back half.
Oh.
He sent me back half of the money. And I was just like,
now, does that count as the second attempt?
In my mind, I was just like, do I accept this blessing? Or do I return it again? No, you keep it. And we just go back and forth. And he said, no, most people probably wouldn't have picked up my call. They would have acted like they never saw it. Thanks for just, being a good woman of God. Oh. He said those words without knowing I was Christian.
Yeah.
And I was just like, I think that's the discernment of knowing, okay, God, this is your blessing for me. As opposed to, I think that's where I'm like,
the pushback is the blessing.
Mm-hmm. And I had needed that money. I got my dad's stuff that he needed, and I'm back home, and now I'm on a book a flight for vacation.
No, but what's interesting about that is the idea of, especially with the pushback that you were kind of mentioning there, Tally. I think what's really cool about that is the idea of your initial reaction was, this is what a person of God would do. Because whether or not you're a good or bad person, I know you're not going to decide for yourself.
I needed that 700, man.
No, but my point is you're not someone who's going to go, okay, I am a good or a bad person. You're not going to you're not going to sit there and go, hey everyone, I'm a great person. You wouldn't say that about yourself because you want to make sure you're staying humble, but you would describe yourself as a woman of God, right? And so that's how you carry yourself. Because of that, there's probably a lot of people who turn away help that is meant to be a blessing towards you, right? I mean, do you guys know the joke about the guy and the place is flooding
in the water, and he's
so just really quick for
he was standing on an ice cube.
I don't
is
know
that how he did it?
No.
Oh, sorry.
So there's a guy it's the area's flooding, right? And the water's getting pretty high. It's like up to his knees right now. And some guy in a Jeep pulls up. He goes, hey man, it's flooding. It's like a priest, this guy, right? And he goes, hey man, it's flooding. We got to get out of here. And he goes, no, my son, God will provide, right? Okay, so he leaves. Water's getting pretty high, right? So now he's on the top steps of the church. Water's getting pretty high. And a guy in a boat down the street comes down now. He's like, hey, Father, get in the boat. I'll get you out of here. And he goes, my son, trust in the Lord. He shall provide. So he goes, okay.
While he's providing.
Yeah. So now, that's basically the end. So now he's on top of the church. The water is really high. There's a helicopter, drops down the ladder. Father, get in the helicopter. And he goes, my son, you must have faith. God will provide. So the helicopter leaves and he drowns. So he walks up to the pearly white gates and he meets God. And he goes, God, I trusted in you. I was a man of faith. I was like Abraham, XYZ. Why did you not provide for me? And God goes, oh my gosh, I sent you a Jeep. I sent you a boat. I sent you a helicopter. What more do you want from me? So I think the idea of we're going to say, listen, I don't need that for me. Keep that for you or give it to somebody who needs it. That's a very, godly thing to do. Mm-hmm. And it's nice when God pushes back and goes, this one is for you. You do need this or deserve this or however you want to phrase it. So I think that's just an interesting takeaway. And to relate it back to our chapter, especially, that doesn't happen here. if anything, the opposite reaffirmment happens, right? Whereas, what's it called? The Melchizedek comes down and blesses and says, like, God is the one who helped you defeat these enemies. And Abram turns around and goes, yes, he did. And this is what I promised God. And that's why I'll deny these things, right? I promise that I'm not doing this for conquering, which also makes me feel like, not that, and we can get into the weeds of this, I think, another time, but the idea of violence in the Bible, when God calls for violence, in this moment, it's not, hey, just go and pillage for spoils, right? It's, if he did pray beforehand and say, God, help me win this battle, some people might turn around and go, God is going to bless your battle so that you can kill people for your means or whatever. But if we look at Abram's reasoning, he made the promise that I'm not doing this for an unjust reason or a selfish reason. I'm doing this for a selfless reason. I'm trying to save my family. And so God does allow that blessing to happen. And then Abram holds up his end of the bargain. So I'm sure we'll hit more moments where there's violence that is, I'll say, condoned by God. And I'm curious what those look like. But in this instance, I noticed that, okay, if God did help him out here, which I'm assuming he did, because Abram said, like, no, I promised God if he helped me here, I wouldn't take this stuff, that God isn't just condoning, hey, go pillage this place and take the spoils for yourself because you deserve it. It's not that. Yeah.
I want to kind of go back a little bit to this Melchizedek person, because there's a few things in here that I think can be explored. One of them, that we didn't say yet, was the end of verse 20, where Abram, after Melchizedek comes in out of nowhere, brings out the bread and wine and blesses Abram. Abram gives him 1/10 of everything. And
what's the word for that? Would you say that again, Tally? Tithes with the TH?
Tithes.
The tithes.
Okay. I've heard that word before. It's like you give 10% to the church,
It's
right?
1/10, yep. It's 1/10. And that's kind of the first, I think this is the first mention of, so far, of a 10th, giving 1/10, a tithe, of everything. And, well, why did Abram do that? Was this a custom that already exists in that time? I don't know. But there's clearly something about Melchizedek and his religious views that Abram respected, for him to give him 1/10 of everything.
So, just to add some context, possibly, so in a footnote I have here, right? So it says Salem, traditionally identified with Jerusalem, but the Hebrew text is not certain. Instead of the present Melech Shalem, king of Salem, the original may have been Melech Shalomo, a king allied to him. And also in Hebrews chapter 7, verse 2, king of Salem is interpreted as king of peace, which I guess is also Shalom.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, so traditionally identified with Jerusalem is a very interesting kind of, I guess, I don't know, adding some context. But just to make sure I understand what you're saying, Ken, is that so Melchizedek comes out of nowhere. He wasn't one of the warring kings, but he does seem to be worshiping the same God as Abram. Mm-hmm. But how is that possible if he's kind of like outside of Abram's?
That was my
world,
next
right?
point.
Yeah. And
that's what I think, Franklin, me and you were talking about this in an earlier episode, but that was my point. Because we were saying, well, God chose Abram, and so God's going to go do his only things through Abram. But I'm like, that doesn't mean God doesn't talk to other people. Just because one person's in the Bible doesn't mean God's not operating outside of that. And this guy, Melchizedek, is a perfect example of that, because he's worshiping the same God. He's doing the same things, and Abram recognizes that. And this guy, Melchizedek, who the Bible doesn't talk about him genealogically either, right? Noticing, like, for Abram, they traced his entire genealogy from Adam to Abram. For Melchizedek, they don't even know where he comes from. They just don't even mention it. He's just another random person from a random town, right? But he's worshiping the same God. So God is working outside of the story of Abram and his family line. So I think it's just important to note that, yeah, we're reading the Bible, but that doesn't mean that God only operates within this one particular family line in the Middle East. He's still operating outside in other areas of the world. I think that's kind of what this kind of portrays.
Now that reminds me, I forget who I was talking to, but it was about aliens. And
Okay.
shut up, dude. I swear this
All right,
relates
let's
back.
see how this ties back.
Yes. So we were talking about aliens, and they were like, "I don't believe in aliens." I said, "Okay, why?" And they said, "Hold on, is someone's stuff coming out of their speakers? I'm getting feedback."
I don't think so.
Okay, just making sure. So aliens. So the idea of like, they were like, oh, I was like, why don't you believe in aliens? And they were like, well, God made us in his likeness and image. And I went, okay, but he could also make other things, and they may not be in his likeness and image, or maybe they are and they're just somewhere else. But either way, like that's not really a reason for them not to exist. And they were like, yeah, well, like, why doesn't he tell us about them or anything like that? And I kind of had a similar answer that you had just had, Ken. The idea of, well, maybe you don't need to know. Maybe it's just not something you're being told. You know, God is. I heard on another podcast, which people should not listen to until they're done with all of our episodes. But this idea of like, God is so big, like the universe is small to him, right? So to think that, you know, he doesn't have things. Humanity seems huge. It's everything to us, right? Our world is literally everything to us, right? But the idea of like, no, he's dealing with other stuff over there. What I think is interesting, though, is just it seems like we have this lineage straight from Noah, which is like I call it like the bottleneck from before the flood, right? So I'm curious, like I am just curious. Okay, what line went that way with God, and when did it disperse? You know, I don't think we have an answer. Obviously, I just think it's interesting how did they get to like what is the genealogy to Melchizedek, and what experience with God did they have?
Yeah. And I guess my overarching point is when you're reading the Bible, it's important to understand that the Bible is telling a specific thing. It's not telling an everything. Like, we read into this in our first episode. We talked about Genesis, our first, second episodes, about, well, the Bible's not telling us exactly how he created everything and all the details about everything. Well, because that's not the point. It's not trying to do that. And similar to this, like, I mean, at this point in time, there's probably other entire civilizations in India or Asia and during the same exact time period, right? It's probably people in, you know, Europe in the same exact time period going through God knows what and having their own relationships with God in many different ways.
And relationships with other gods that, you know, real or lesser or however, you know, that's a different conversation.
Yeah.
But they've created their own, you know, religious background.
Exactly. So my point is that it's important to realize that the Bible shouldn't invalidate other cultures or places around the world and their experiences, because it really doesn't. But what the Bible does is it's telling a specific story about a specific people throughout history to get to one specific person, Jesus. That's it. Like, so it's kind of putting the blinders on in history, and you know, it's going to interact with like Melchizedek, right? Or it's going to interact with the New Testament with the Ethiopian man that is reading the Bible, right? It's going to interact with other people around, but it's not focused with that. It's just focused with this one family. So I think some people, when reading Genesis or reading the Bible, get a wrong, maybe, who knows, I could be wrong, but some people get a wrong understanding, thinking that, oh, if it's not in the Bible, everything else is trash. But that's not true, right?
Can you give an example of what other people would call trash that's not in the Bible that you're saying, hey, it's not? Like, so for example, like if I said the Greek pantheon, right? Like if I said, hey, it's not in the Bible, that's not real. You could say that's a bad argument, but like, is there anything that you're saying, like, can you just give an example?
Well, what I'm saying is at this time, there are other civilizations that exist, which we don't even know about. Largely because our history is limited in what we're viewing. But that doesn't mean in other places around the world, God's not interacting with people. It doesn't mean that in ancient China at this time, for example, God's not interacting with people or any other type of civilization. Just like Melchizedek from this place called Salem. Before this verse, we didn't know anything about him. Before this verse, maybe people could be assuming that, oh, well, God's only talking to Abraham, right?
Mm-hmm.
And not to anybody else. And that would just be completely untrue. So just because the Bible doesn't speak about certain people or cultures doesn't mean those people or cultures are godless, necessarily. That's kind of what my point is.
So to kind of jump off that to present day, right? So in the Catholic Church, you have, people that are announced as saints, right? They're canonized in the Catholic Church. And these are people that the Catholic Church has basically vetted, that have died. They vetted them. It's been agreed upon by a council of people. There's literally a person in the Vatican whose job title is the devil's advocate, who will look into reported miracles and try to disprove them. And so a canonized saint in the Catholic Church has to have two, agreed upon miracles that like nobody can explain through natural phenomenon. Saint Augustine, if I'm remembering correctly, right, had a vision of heaven when he was, when he was alive. And he said the number of, whenever that was.
Whatever.
Don't laugh at me. I don't know. Anyway. And he said the number of people in heaven outnumbered, I forget the exact quote, but he outnumbered any amount of people he'd ever seen, all in one place. And so the idea that, I don't know how many canonized saints are in the Catholic Church, but it's, maybe a couple thousand, right? But now we're talking about millions and millions of people, out of all the billions of people that ever lived, right? However many, are in heaven. And so, I wonder if it's kind of analogous to what you're saying, where you can follow the story of a specific saint, right? But so somebody that did have, some interaction with gods and lived a virtuous life and, whatever that may be. But there's countless saints that will go unnamed in human history, as far as humans will, the rest of the humans will know.
And just to give context, James, saint means is in heaven, correct?
Means the church vouches that they're in heaven, kind of.
That they're I know, but for example,
literally, yes, yeah. That would
if there's someone who goes to heaven, but the church doesn't know either way, in reality they are a saint. We just don't recognize them as one. Exactly. But I'm just giving them context because I know Tally and Kenneth aren't specifically Catholic.
Yeah, I have no idea what you're talking about. I'm just following along.
Yeah, so that's what he's basically saying is when there's all these people in heaven, all of those people are actually saints. We just haven't been able to make a case from our perspective here on earth that they are saints. The set definition of saint being somebody who is in heaven.
There's not enough records of their life, right? Or enough people to explain the, how good of a life or how virtuous of a life they led. And so that could be somebody like Melchizedek, right? Just after a quick Wikipedia search though, let's see here.
Which hot take? Wikipedia, great source.
Melchizedek. This is a theory. This is not an agreed upon thing. Joseph Bleckensop, I don't know who that is, some guy on Wikipedia, suggested that the story of Melchizedek is an informal insertion into the Genesis narration, possibly inserted in order to give validity to the priesthood and titles connected with the Second Temple. It has also been conjectured that the suffix Zedek may have been a reference to a Canaanite deity worshipped in pre-Israelite Jerusalem. So it's possible that it wasn't the same. He didn't have any interactions with God, right? Or it was just a pre-Israelite.
So he's saying we can assume that he's not a real person. He may just be inserted in the text, or we can assume that he is a real person, but because of his name has some origins to some pagan god. Therefore, his words, where he says the Most High God, is not talking about Abram's Most High God.
That I guess that's just
which seems more like a logical kind of. That seems like a pretty poor theory to me.
Yeah, I don't know. This is
just gonna
Wikipedia.
say that
It's
up.
not my.
Yeah, no,
blame this other guy.
some
Joseph,
random guy.
that, whatever.
I will say though, Melchizedek is mentioned again later on in Hebrews chapter 7. So I'll read it out. I don't know what's going on with Tally. Or
I think Tally just started
dying.
losing some sneezes, man.
It says in Hebrews chapter 7, it says, "For this Melchizedek, king of Salem, priest of the Most High God, who met Abraham as he was returning from the slaughter of the kings and blessed him, to whom also Abraham apportioned a tenth of everything. In the first place, his name is translated King of Righteousness, Melchizedek. And then also King of Salem, that is King of Peace, because Salem or Shalom, it means peace. Without father, without mother, without genealogy, having neither beginning of days nor end of life, but resembling the Son of God, he remains a priest for all time."
Who, Melchizedek?
Yeah, it's saying like he didn't have any mention of his. He's just a random character, right? No, his father wasn't mentioned, or mother wasn't mentioned. No genealogy, no beginning of his days or end of his life. But he was still resembling Son of God, remaining a priest for all time.
What do you mean resembling a Son of God?
Resembling the Son of God is in the way in which he's introduced is kind of like how Jesus is. Like he was only talked about as a priest. Only that. Nothing else about his life. Only good things.
The bread and wine.
Like
with the brand, like his entire so it's not saying that's what he was. The author of Hebrews is just saying that Melchizedek is that type of character in the story where there's nothing about him that is negative. He just comes up as a righteous figure. His name even means King of Righteousness. That's what Melchizedek means.
You know what's interesting about that is
and King of
also
Peace.
the King of Salem, right? So King of Peace, right, is something to be included in there, and people call Jesus the Prince of Peace, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not saying I believe this, and I almost hesitate to say it because I don't know. This is just a surface thought, and I almost feel scared, if that makes any sense, to say this, because I don't know the ramifications. But like, so I've heard some people say like God in the form of the Son has existed for all time, right? I've heard some people say like he's existed everywhere, but he just wasn't made flesh until he came to earth in that regard. But he was an acting character, so to speak. Same as God is the Holy Spirit. The Trinity always existed. It's just like, that's why sometimes they say like, the angel of the Lord, right? And what that means and etc. We could talk about that when we get to it. But I wonder, it's just, especially with the mention of bread and wine there, obviously we know the ramifications of bread and wine. It's very specific of a thing to bring. And there's no other context around the fact that it was bread and wine. And it's not like it was sacrifice. Like, you know what I mean? Like, so the fact that it's brought up just almost makes me, and now with everything that you said, makes me go, is this, I don't know, Jesus hopping in for a second and going, bless Abram from the God of the Most High. I'm the Prince of Peace. Because that just, I don't know, that because it's not Jesus with the name Jesus, that feels, and I know Tyler's going to disagree, that feels blasphemous to say, which is why it kind of scares me to bring it up.
My guess, and I want to hear what Tally has to say, but my guess is it could just be foreshadowing. It could be illusion, and alluding to thing. Like I think the Bible does that a lot. I would have to read more of the Bible, as we will continue to do on this podcast. But
what would be the
my
foreshadow there?
Well,
that this priest,
that it's
of peace,
that another high priest will come, right? Jesus, and it's kind of like with John the Baptist, right? Like Jesus said, John, or whatever, John will bless you with water, or no, John says this: I bless you with water, but the Messiah will come and bless you with the Spirit, or the Holy Spirit, right? So I imagine it could be something like that, right? Like you can symbolically break bread and say like and bless it, but it's still just bread, right? But like when Jesus does it, it's his body. So
I believe, this is why I was like, that the bread and wine was symbolic of spiritual nourishment before the reward, the celebration, and acknowledgement. And I feel like it's all a foreshadow. Um, so I think God is trying to show us like in order, like um, the order, recognition, and then alignment. So um, I don't think like the tithe has anything to do with Melchizedek's status or anything like that. I think it's just not who he is, but what he, it's the acknowledgement of it. So basically, I think God's establishing rightful authority, knowing that you are blessing him first and then comes the thing. But I think this random character was sent. Um, I like to think of everything as a test because I just feel life is really testy. I feel like this was a test for Abram from God to see like, okay, this is a high priest. Abram knew it was in the Bible stating that he was a priest, so that's what we know, priest of God. So he's a priest of God, blesses him, and then Abram gives the 10th, and I feel as though when you give a 10th, you're doing that to like praise God, right? And I think it was in this order, right? Abram just defeated kings. I wrote this down, and he could have positioned himself as powerful, independent, self-made, but God allowed him to submit to a priest king who outranks him spiritually. That's my thought process. So this will keep Abram, humbled and ordered, right? That's the order. Then I think comes the recognition. And so he's just like, Abram recognizes, okay, this is a priest. This is the same God that I worship. The tithe declares the ownership, right? He's like, this is the tithe that I give the Lord, and I'm giving you this 10% of everything, right? None of this is actually mine. And I know that this is for God, so he's giving it. He's not giving it to Melchizedek necessarily, right? So then it's not a payment. It's like his confession of like, I worship you, God. And then that sets the pattern of the order, the recognition, and then the alignment. And so it's like, this is before there was the Mosaic law, right? So there's no command, there's no rule. But I think God is foreshadowing, showing us the flow of the recognition, the regulation that's not yet there. And then, yeah, man, I think it's Abram aligning himself with God's eternal authority and like not temporary kingship.
That's interesting because first of all, that's a very deep read. Like, yeah, that's a very cool analysis.
Just so you know, before I read this podcast, I was
just studying.
I can show you my notes. I was just studying Genesis. Like I'm starting the Bible over from January 1st. Yeah. So I just finished that chapter. I was like going through all the Bibles, and my dad here is like chronological Bibles. This Bible's trying to put everything together. I was like doing like thesis work on this. So that's the notes that I have.
No, that's really cool, and I think it's almost proven correct. Obviously, there's a time. This is after the Bible when these spiritual leaders are also making themselves like these political leaders, so to speak. You know what I mean? Like it's like the opposite, where somebody's using it they are putting themselves into power, and like that's. I'm sure James probably has a little bit more specific detail of the idea of like when the church was doing wrong things because the Pope was more of a king than a spiritual leader, right? And in this moment, Abraham is going, no, I'm going to submit to the spiritual leader who, yes, it says he's a king, but like is not acting in the way of the other kings.
Yeah, like I think it is very symbolic because I'm going to Hebrews. Like his name Melchizedek just means king of righteousness. His name translated. And he's king of Salem, king of peace, because Salem means peace, right? He's a symbolic figure. And then I forget my Bible has like little hyperlinks, right? So I clicked on the hyperlink, and there's actually another mention of Melchizedek, but in the Psalms. So Hebrews is New Testament, some guy after Jesus making a connection between Jesus and Melchizedek. But here in Psalm 110, it's a psalm made by David, so it's still hundreds, maybe thousands of years before Jesus, right? And David's making this, and David says in Psalm 110, a declaration of the Lord to my Lord, sit at my right hand until I make your enemies your footstool. The Lord will send out your mighty scepter from Zion, rule from the midst of your enemies. Your people will volunteer in the day of your power. In holy splendor from the womb of the dawn, you will have the dew of your youth. The Lord has sworn that he will not change his mind. You are a priest forever, according to the manner of Melchizedek. Right? And it's like, it's kind of like, it's prophetic because like, who's David talking about? He's talking about his Lord, like the Lord God spoke to his Lord, and that there's going to be someone who's going to have a kingdom that lasts forever. He later on says, the Lord at your right hand, he'll shatter the kings on the day of your anger. You will judge among the nations, etc., etc. So it's prophetic thing from David. It's talking about some future person who is a priest forever according to the manner of Melchizedek. Right? And now you're thinking about that. Okay, there's just so many, all of a sudden, all these different symbolism comes in. Like Melchizedek means king of righteousness. I mean, he's king of Salem, which is king of peace. And he comes with bread and wine, right? Which is the symbol that Jesus himself chooses to use as one of the sacraments of the communion, right? Like the bread and the wine. So I think it's all playing along that type of symbolism.
Yes. Well, that's why it's the bread and wine in this moment is only a symbol, right? It's not being used in the way Jesus used it later.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like, oh, we're seeing bread and wine used in the same way as a foreshadow. It's just this guy shows up with bread and wine. And from our perspective, that's like going like, hey, remember where this is from, guys? It's from this guy. So there's a relation here. And
Exactly.
I find that so interesting.
That's so good.
Wow.
But the bread and wine was used for the blessing.
No, I understand, but it's not
okay.
it's not like he's using
Like, hey,
it
man.
the same way Jesus used it.
Yeah, he's
right?
not saying
It's
this is my body. Yeah.
Yes,
Mhm.
you know, it's almost like, you know, we keep saying that the Bible is written, you know, for us, but not to us. I think is the phrase we've kind of been saying. Not that we coined it, but I think this is a moment where God knows that these are going to be read throughout our time here, right, throughout history, and so that is almost feels like a sign to us, to people who know what happens in the New Testament, right? Which I think is real cool. But that, I don't know, I got to do a lot of thinking on that.
I think we're at the end of it. I do want to leave with just one more thought. So again, in
Yeah.
Hebrews 7, a little further down, the writer of Hebrews asks this question. He says, because he's contrasting the order of Melchizedek, which is one priesthood, and then the Levites, which is the Jewish kind of priest order, right? That gets made after Moses. And then he says, if perfection was already through the Levitical priesthood, because he's talking to Hebrews now, he's questioning them, questioning the Jews at that time. If the perfection is through the Levitical priesthood for the basis of the people who received the law, Moses' law, what further need is there for another priest to arise according to the order of Melchizedek and not according to the order of Aaron? Aaron is the head of the Levite priest. So basically he's saying there's this kind of prophecy or testimony from David saying you are a priest forever according to the order of Melchizedek. But it's not saying according to the order of the Levites, right? Meaning that Jesus is according to the order of Melchizedek, and that's where the Messiah should come from, and not as a priest according to the Levites, which is the Jewish tradition, because that's not even where the prophecy is talking about, right? So you had Jews. So the author of Hebrews is making the case that Jesus is a priest in the order of Melchizedek, and the fact that he's not part of the official Jewish priestly line, like all the rest of the Levites, is actually fine, because the Bible is not even saying that this Messiah is going to come from those Levites. So the fact that Jesus is separated from like that order and something more, coming from righteousness and Salem or peace, is more of kind of the hyperlink, right?
Yeah, and I think that's interesting, because it's almost a recognition of like the rules are for you, not for him, right? That's cool.
Nice. All right.
Okay, goodbye.
Aner, Eshcol, and Mamre.